He pointed at me in front of everyone and shouted, "You're just a useless old man now." They all laughed like I was a joke, but they didn't know I had already sold the house they were living in. And tonight, I was going to tell them. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Edward Turner. I'm 68 years old and I've spent my whole life working hard for my family. I used to fix roofs, build fences, and run a small hardware shop. I wasn't rich, but I saved every dollar I could. I bought this house when my wife, Carol, was pregnant with our first child. We raised our kids here, Madison, our daughter, and Jacob, our son. Every wall in this house holds memories. Every corner has her laughter. Carol passed away 6 years ago, and since then, nothing has felt the same. After she died, I stayed with Jacob. He had a big family, 2 boys, a girl, and a wife who never liked me much. Madison lived far away in another city and only visited during holidays. In the beginning, Jacob told me I could live with them forever. "Dad, this is your home too," he had said, but over the years his tone changed. Slowly he stopped calling me Dad and started calling me old man. He said it jokingly at first, then not so jokingly. I cleaned the yard every morning, helped the kids with homework, even cooked dinner when his wife was tired. But still, I became invisible. They'd talk around me, not to me. I started eating my meals in silence, sometimes even in my room. They laughed loudly at the table, and I sat in the corner like a ghost. One night during dinner, Jacob made a joke about me in front of his friends. He said, "Old man doesn't even know how to use a microwave." Everyone laughed. I smiled, but inside something broke. That night I stared at the ceiling for hours. I thought about Carol. What would she say if she saw this? Would she cry like I did that night? A few weeks later, I overheard something I wasn't supposed to hear. Jacob and his wife were in the kitchen. I was in the next room, quiet as ever. His wife said, "We can't keep living like this. He's taking up space. We need that room. Maybe it's time we look at some nursing homes." Jacob replied, "Yeah, he's just useless now. He just sits around. The kids don't even like talking to him anymore." I covered my mouth. I didn't want to make a sound. My heart was beating so loud I was scared they'd hear it. After all I did, I was now a problem. That night I opened the old wooden box where I kept my documents. Inside was something they had forgotten, the deed to the house. Yes, it was in my name. They never asked and I never told them. They just assumed it was theirs now. I guess that's what happens when people stop seeing you as a person. That night something changed inside me. I decided I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to wait for someone to care. I was going to take back my life. Quietly. No fights. No shouting. Just one big surprise. Before I continue, if you're still listening, do me a small favor. Please like this video and subscribe. It really helps me keep sharing my stories. Also, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to see how far my voice is reaching. So the next morning I went for a walk. I saw a sign that said "Realtor available, fast closing." I noted the number. That afternoon, when everyone was gone, I called. I met with the agent 2 days later. I showed him the house, told him everything honestly. He asked, "Are you sure you want to sell, sir?" I smiled. I've never been more sure. We kept everything quiet. I didn't even tell Madison. She was busy with her own life, and honestly, she had started sounding like Jacob too. She called me dramatic once when I told her I was feeling lonely. Dramatic, me, at this age. Anyway, the papers were signed in under 2 weeks. The buyers were a sweet couple expecting a baby. They loved the house and said they'd take good care of it. I told them I'd hand over the keys by the end of the month. They agreed. Now here's the fun part. Jacob decided to host a big dinner one weekend. Madison was in town, and he wanted to show off his perfect family. He told me to dress up and not be weird. I wore the same old suit I wore at Madison's graduation. It was a little tight, but it still fit. Dinner started fine. Madison brought wine. Jacob's friends were there too. Laughter, food, stories, then like always the joke started. Jacob raised a toast and said, "To family and to the old man who still thinks the house is his." Everyone laughed again, loud, mean, cruel. That's when I stood up. I reached into my coat pocket. My hands were shaking a bit. I pulled out the house deed. I placed it on the table, flat and firm. "This old man," I said, looking at each of them, "just sold the house you live in." Silence, complete silence. That moment, oh, that moment, I will never forget. I had never felt more alive. Nobody said a word. Not one fork moved, not one breath was loud enough to hear. Madison's wine glass was midair, frozen. Jacob looked at the paper like it was a bomb. His wife's smile faded faster than a candle in wind. I could almost hear their hearts drop. I didn't sit back down. I just stood there, letting it sink in. The same people who laughed at me minutes ago now stared like I was a stranger, a threat, a man who still held power. Jacob finally found his voice. "What do you mean you sold the house? What kind of joke is this?" I stayed calm. "It's no joke, Jacob. You never asked whose name was on the house. You just assumed. That's your mistake. This house was mine. It still is until the end of the month. And then it belongs to someone else." His wife stood up so fast her chair almost fell. "You can't do this. We live here. The kids. What about the kids?" I looked at her and said, "Didn't you say you needed the space? That my room was taking it up?" Her mouth opened, then closed again like she couldn't find the words. Madison stepped in. "Dad, come on, this is crazy. You're just mad. You'll cancel it, right? Tell us you'll cancel it." I looked straight at her. "You called me dramatic. Remember, this old man is not dramatic. He's done being quiet." Jacob started shouting, "You're going to ruin everything. Where are we supposed to go? What about our stuff? You're throwing your own family out." Now he cared. Now he was scared. I didn't feel guilt, not a drop. I had begged for years for attention, respect, kindness. All I got were jokes, silence, and empty stares. Now they were finally looking at me and I wasn't the weak one anymore. I took a deep breath. "You have 2 weeks. The new family moves in on the 30th. I've already packed my things." "You can't just walk away," Jacob yelled. "I'm not walking away," I said. "I'm walking toward peace." I picked up the deed, folded it, and tucked it back in my jacket. Then I walked to my room as they started arguing. They yelled at each other, blaming, pointing, packing. I heard Jacob say, "Why didn't we check the deed?" His wife screamed, "You told me we owned it." And Madison, poor Madison, just cried. In my room, I zipped up my last bag. I looked around one final time. The walls had seen Carol dancing in the kitchen. They had seen our kids grow, cry, laugh. And they had seen me turn into furniture, silent, still, and unnoticed. But not anymore. That version of me was staying in this room. I was walking out as someone new. Next morning, I left before sunrise. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't leave a note. I just got in the cab and left. The driver asked, "Where to, sir?" I gave him the address of my new apartment. Small, yes, but by the lake. Quiet, clean, and mine. No one would call me useless there. The first night was strange. No noise, no footsteps, no laughter that didn't include me, just silence. And it felt beautiful. I made tea, sat on the small balcony, and watched the water. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like a man again. Days passed. I settled in. Bought a new chair, a small TV, and planted a little flower pot near the window. My neighbors were kind. One lady, Marcia, about 60, brought me cookies. "You remind me of my husband," she smiled. I smiled back. Maybe I wasn't invisible after all. Then the knocking started. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was reading, soft knock. I opened the door and there stood Madison, eyes red, hands shaking. "Dad," she whispered. I didn't say anything, just stood there. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know it was that bad. Jacob, he's been a mess. He's blaming everyone but himself. The kids miss you." "They didn't speak to me for months," I replied. "Not until they had something to lose." She nodded. I know I don't expect you to forgive us, I miss you. I stepped outside and sat on the bench. She followed. We didn't talk for a long time, just sat. That was enough for me. The next day Jacob came. His eyes were filled with fire, but his shoulders sagged like a defeated man. You made your point, he said. Happy now? No, I replied. I'm not happy about any of this. I would have loved a home filled with love and laughter, but that didn't happen, so I gave myself something else, freedom. He muttered something, probably a curse, and left. His wife didn't come. I don't think she ever will. Now I wake up each morning with peace. I go for walks. I feed birds. I cook for myself. I even learned how to use the microwave Jacob joked about. Funny how life works. And sometimes I sit on my bench and wonder, did they learn anything? I don't know, maybe not, but I did. I learned I'm not useless. I'm not old. I'm Edward Turner, a man who took his life back. The days passed slowly but peacefully. I didn't rush through mornings anymore. No one banged on doors asking for breakfast. No one left dirty plates on the table expecting me to clean them. I had silence now, and silence became my favorite sound. Every morning I walked to the lake with a small thermos of coffee. I sat on the same bench, fed the ducks, and watched the sunlight dance on the water. I had lived most of my life for others. Now I was finally living for myself. It's funny how they all came running after the house was gone. Madison, at least, showed regret. She came twice a week, brought groceries, sat quietly, sometimes cried. She said she wished she had seen what was happening before. I told her, you were busy building your life. I don't blame you, but I won't let anyone use me again. She said, I understand, Dad. But I don't think she really did. No one understands what it feels like to be ignored in your own home unless they've lived it. Jacob didn't come again, but he texted, mostly short, dry messages. Need to talk. About the kids. Can we meet? I didn't reply to any of them. He never texted me before the sale. He never even looked at me when I passed him the salt at dinner. And now he wanted to talk. About what? About how I destroyed his comfort. I received a letter from him one evening, handwritten, full of messy lines and crossouts. He said, I'm angry, not because you sold the house, but because I didn't see it coming. I should have. You were always smart, always quiet, and I thought that meant weak. I'm sorry, we all are. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Still, I didn't reply. I started writing letters too, not to them, but to Carol. I knew she wasn't going to read them, but it helped. It made me feel close to her. I wrote about the sunrise, the ducks, the silence, the tears I didn't show in front of others. One day I wrote, Carol, I wish you had been here to hold my hand when they laughed at me, but I think you'd be proud of me now. I cried while writing that one, but the tears felt warm, not weak. One morning Madison brought Jacob's children, my grandchildren. Little Lucy, 7 years old, ran to hug me. Grandpa, I missed you. I hugged her tight. My hands shook, not because I was old, but because I was scared. I didn't want to open that door again. I was finally healing. Jacob's older son, Brian, said, Dad says you're mad at us. I knelt and looked him in the eye. No, sweetheart, I was never mad at you. I just needed space to breathe. Lucy asked, can we come see you more? I said, you can come whenever you want. This is your grandpa's house now. They stayed for an hour. We played cards. We made popcorn. Madison cried again quietly. I didn't say anything. I just smiled. The next day I received another visitor, a man in a suit, from the real estate agency. Mr. Turner, the new owners are very happy. They said the house feels warm. They asked me to give you this. He handed me a small box. Inside was a keychain. On it, the words, thank you for letting us make new memories where yours once lived. I stared at it for a long time. My hands trembled again. I didn't expect anything, not gratitude, but there it was. And that night, for the first time in years, I danced. Alone in my small living room, holding Carol's photo. I played our song on my phone. I whispered, we did it, Carol. We finally found peace. Before I end this section, if you've made it this far, I want to say thank you. Sharing this story has helped me more than I expected. And if it touched your heart even a little, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to comment the name of your city. I really want to know how far this old man's story has reached. I'm not telling this story for sympathy. I'm telling it because there are people out there, maybe you, who feel forgotten like I did. Let me tell you something I wish someone told me earlier. You're not useless. You're not invisible. You just forgot your value because others stopped looking at you the right way. And now something unexpected happened. 2 weeks after I moved, Jacob's wife showed up. Yes, her. She stood outside my apartment building, arms crossed, looking as if the wind itself offended her. When I stepped out, she didn't smile. She said, "I came to say thank you." I blinked. I thought I heard wrong. She continued, "You did what we never expected. You made us wake up. Jacob has started therapy. We talk more now. We cook together. I hated you because you reminded me of what we lost. But now I think you helped us find something better." She didn't wait for a reply, just turned and walked away. I stood there for a full minute, then went back inside. No emotion on my face, just a quiet thought inside my heart. Maybe all this pain had a purpose. I never thought I'd find happiness in a place without my family. For so long, I believed my value came from what I could do for others, what I could give, fix, clean, or carry. But when I stopped doing those things and they stopped looking at me, I realized they didn't love me. They loved my usefulness. That truth hurt more than anything, but facing it also set me free. Every morning I kept the same ritual: coffee, the lake bench, and a quiet letter to Carol. It was like speaking to the only person who had ever really seen me. I told her about the little things. How the neighbor's dog always barked at 7 a.m. sharp. How the old man 2 floors up kept watering fake plants. And how Marcia, the kind widow next door, always checked on me after rain. "Carol," I wrote, "people here don't need me to be strong. They just let me be." One afternoon, as I was sweeping my balcony, Marcia brought over a photo album. "This was our last vacation together," she said. "I saw her husband smiling beside a river, kids laughing in the background. He was quiet like you," she said. "The kind of man who did everything for others and then got forgotten." I asked, "Did it get easier?" She nodded. "Not at first, but now I don't remember the pain every day. I remember the good days, and I choose to live." Those words stayed with me. I choose to live. That night I sat with Carol's photo in my lap. "I think I'm finally understanding," I whispered. "You always told me to make space for myself. I didn't know how, but I'm learning now." The next morning I made a decision. I walked to the community center and signed up for the senior activity club. The lady behind the desk smiled wide. "We've got painting, yoga, card games, even salsa classes," she said. I laughed. "Salsa? At my age?" She winked. "At any age." I joined the card game group first. It felt odd sitting with strangers, but no one judged me. No one looked through me. They laughed when I won, teased me when I lost. It felt like I belonged somewhere again. A week later, I surprised myself. I joined the painting class. I hadn't held a brush since high school. My first painting was a crooked tree by the lake. Not perfect, but it was mine. One evening, as I packed up my canvas, someone touched my shoulder. I turned. Madison. "Dad," she said, "can I talk to you?" I nodded. We walked to the park bench nearby. She held my hand. "I want to move closer. The city life is too fast, and I miss you." I looked at her, not angry, not sad, just calm. "Do you miss needing me, or do you miss knowing me?" She took a deep breath. "Both, but mostly I miss knowing you. I'm sorry I didn't see how lonely you were. I should have stood up when Jacob mocked you. I laughed because I didn't know how to react. That wasn't right." I didn't answer immediately. I let the wind carry her words a bit. Then I said, "We all mess up, Madison. What matters is if we change after." She nodded. "I want to. I've already started looking for a job nearby. The kids want to see you more. Lucy wants you to teach her how to paint." I smiled. "I can't teach her much. I just learned to hold the brush again." She smiled back. "That's more than enough." Later that week, Jacob sent a video message. I almost deleted it without watching, but something told me to play it. On my small phone screen, he looked nervous. "Dad," he said, "I won't take much of your time. I know I ruined things. I know I hurt you. I thought I was being funny. I thought being the provider meant I could talk however I wanted. But when you walked out, it broke something in me. For the first time, I realized the house wasn't what held our family together. You did. And we didn't even notice when you started disappearing." He paused. "I'm not asking you to come back. I'm just asking for a second chance to show you I can be better. Even if it takes time, even if you say no, I had to try." He ended the video with a small wave. I sat quietly, not smiling, not crying, just breathing. For the first time, he didn't sound like a man full of ego. He sounded like a son, a real one. But I didn't rush to reply. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote a new letter to Carol. "Jacob said sorry today, for real. I didn't think I needed it, but maybe I did. I'm not ready to go back, not yet, but it felt like a crack of light in a dark room." The next week, something strange happened. As I walked by the grocery store near the lake, someone tapped my shoulder. It was Lucy, my granddaughter. Behind her stood Madison and Jacob. "Surprise," she said, holding a small cake box. "It's not your birthday, but we made this for you anyway." I blinked. "Why?" Jacob stepped forward. "Because today marks 1 month since you moved out, and we wanted to honor the day you started choosing yourself." We sat on a bench and shared the cake, just the 5 of us. No phones, no loud jokes, just laughter, the good kind, the kind that doesn't hurt. Before I end this part, if you're still listening, please asterisk like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. It means more than you know. And don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. I read every city name, and it warms my heart to know this story is reaching people who care. That night I looked at myself in the mirror, not as an old man, not as a burden, but as Edward Turner, a man who chose peace and found love again, not from others but from within. It was a Sunday morning, the kind that makes you stop and just breathe. The lake was glowing like melted gold, and the sky looked like someone had brushed it gently with soft blue. I had just returned from my walk, coffee in hand, when I heard footsteps coming up the stairs to my apartment. 3 knocks followed, not loud, not angry, just soft. I opened the door. Jacob stood there, his hands behind his back, eyes unsure. Beside him stood his wife, arms folded but face not as sharp as before. Behind them were the kids, Brian holding Lucy's hand, all of them looking up at me like they were afraid I wouldn't open the door. Jacob spoke first. "Can we come in, Dad?" I looked at them, looked into their eyes, then I stepped aside. "Come in." They sat around the small table. My apartment wasn't big, but suddenly it felt full. Full in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I served them water. No one asked for coffee. No one touched their phones. Then Jacob placed a box on the table. "These are your things from your old room. We didn't want to throw anything out. Madison helped us pack them right." I opened the box slowly. On top was Carol's scarf, the one she used to wear when it rained. I held it in my hands like it was a part of her. Below it, photo frames. A hammer I once fixed their sink with. My old reading glasses. Little things, but not small to me. Jacob took a deep breath. "I know we can't erase what we said, what we did, but I came here today not to fix everything, but to ask something." I raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" He looked at his wife. She gave a tiny nod. "We want to come back," he said. I stared. "Back to what?" "To being a family, to visiting you, talking to you, listening to you. I know we lost the house. I know we lost your trust. But maybe, if you allow it, we can start over." His wife cleared her throat. "I didn't treat you right. I saw you as someone who just existed in our space, not as the man who built it. I was wrong. We were wrong." Lucy tugged my sleeve. "Grandpa, I made you something." She pulled out a drawing, me, her, and ducks near the lake. "I miss you." I smiled, tears building behind my eyes. I blinked them away. "You don't need to come back to me," I said. "I didn't leave to run away. I left to remember who I was. If we want to build something again, it has to be new, not a patch on an old wound." Jacob nodded. "Fair, more than fair." We sat for hours, talked, laughed. They told me about how the kids were adjusting to a smaller apartment, how Jacob had started helping with chores, how his wife had started working part-time at a local store and actually enjoyed it. "It's funny," she said, "losing the house made us closer. We talk more, we argue less, we listen." I said nothing, just sipped my tea. Before they left, Jacob asked, "Can we come every Sunday, same time?" I looked at Lucy's drawing again. "Every Sunday, but bring cookies." Everyone laughed. That night, as I sat by the window, I wrote to Carol. Today they came back, not to take, but to give. I don't know where this path leads, but I finally feel like I'm not walking it alone anymore. Next Sunday they returned, this time with homemade cookies. Madison joined too. The kids played cards. Jacob helped in the kitchen, and his wife actually smiled at me when I passed her a plate. We talked about things we never did before. I told them stories from when I was their age, about how I once got lost in the woods with just a flashlight and Carol's laugh guiding me back. About how I built this house nail by nail, never asking for help. And about how proud I was, not of what I owned, but of the people I tried to raise. Jacob said, "I wish I knew all this earlier." I nodded. "You weren't listening, but now you are." Later, as we sat on the balcony, Brian asked, "Grandpa, do you ever want to move back with us?" I paused. I knew my answer. "No, son, because I'm already home." Before I close this part, thank you again for staying with me. If this story feels like something real, something you've seen or felt, please like the video and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Maybe you've gone through something like this. Maybe you're still waiting to be seen. I'm not done yet, but I'm not broken anymore. I'm not invisible. I'm Edward Turner, and for the first time in years I feel seen. I sat on the same bench that I had sat on 100 mornings before. The lake still shimmered like glass, calm and endless. But this morning felt different. I had just come back from Sunday lunch with my family, my son, my daughter, their children. And for the first time in years, the air between us wasn't heavy with things left unsaid. I never thought I'd reach this point. I thought I would live the rest of my days alone, with only letters to Carol and memories to keep me company. But life has a strange way of turning pages you thought were already glued shut. All you have to do is stop trying to fix the old chapter and start writing a new one. Jacob kept his promise. Every Sunday they came, sometimes with food, sometimes with stories, sometimes with just time. His wife brought a pie once and even asked me how I liked my coffee. It wasn't perfect. It still felt awkward sometimes, like we were strangers pretending to be close. But it was a start, and I could live with that. One Sunday after lunch, Jacob stayed behind while the others went to the park. We sat across from each other, coffee in hand, the silence between us not uncomfortable anymore. He leaned forward. "Dad, can I ask you something you might not want to answer?" I nodded. "Why didn't you scream at us that night? Why didn't you get angry? We humiliated you, and all you did was quietly destroy our world." I let out a breath and looked at him. Because I spent years hoping someone would see how I was feeling. Screaming wouldn't have changed anything. You didn't hear me when I spoke softly. I didn't think you'd hear me if I shouted. He stared at the floor. "I heard you that night, loud and clear." I nodded again. "Good, that's all I ever wanted." There was a long pause. Then he said the thing I had waited decades to hear. "I'm proud of you, Dad. You taught me something I couldn't have learned from anyone else." That night I didn't write to Carol. I felt like she was sitting right there beside me, smiling. The next few weeks were filled with small surprises. Madison helped me get a better phone, one with a bigger screen. Brian taught me how to use it. Lucy made me a handmade journal with stickers and called it Grandpa's Victory Book. On the first page she had written, "He was quiet, but he made the loudest move." I nearly cried reading that. I started going to painting class more often, even joined a book club. Marcia, my neighbor, told me I had more color in my face now. I told her, "That's because I finally feel alive again." And then came a letter, a real one, not a bill, not an ad, a letter from the couple who bought my house. They had framed one of Carol's old garden photos and placed it by the back porch. They wrote, "We see your wife's smile in this garden. We hope her peace lives on here too." I read that letter 3 times before putting it in Carol's memory box. Before I wrap this part, I want to speak directly to you watching this. If you've ever felt small in your own home, if your voice has been lost in noise or silence, know this: you are not useless. You are not weak. You are waiting for your moment, and when it comes, don't fight to hurt, fight to free yourself. Please like this video and subscribe if you're still with me. And as always, tell me where you're watching from. It means the world to me to know that someone out there is listening. Now back to the story. One rainy evening, Jacob visited alone. He looked serious. Not sad, not angry, just thoughtful. "I need to ask you something important," he said. I sat down. "Go on." "If something happened to me, would you look after the kids?" I blinked. "Why are you asking that?" "Because I trust you now, I didn't before. And I want them to grow up knowing what strength really looks like. You never raised your voice, never hit us, never gave up, even when we gave up on you." I smiled. "I'm not going anywhere soon, but yes, if that day ever came, I'd take care of them like they were my own children again." He nodded, eyes wet. "Thank you." That night I realized something powerful. I had forgiven him, not because he said the right things, but because I no longer needed him to. The weight I had carried of being unwanted, unloved, unneeded, it was gone. I was still here, still standing, still smiling. I took out Carol's photo and placed it by my window. "We're almost at the end now," I whispered. "And guess what, Carol, I didn't break." The wind that morning had a softness to it, like it carried something sacred. I stood in front of a mirror, fixing my collar, combing my silver hair neatly to the side. I was getting ready for an event I never thought I'd be invited to again, my grandson Brian's school graduation. They wanted me there. Jacob asked me personally, "Dad, it would mean a lot if you came." The boy even sent me a handwritten card that said, "Grandpa, I want you in the front row. You never missed my big moments, even when I didn't invite you." That one sentence made me sit down and cry like a child. I had missed holding little Brian when he was a baby, missed his first birthday, his first words, but now he wanted me at one of the biggest days of his life. The school auditorium was packed, families everywhere. I sat near the front with the rest of the family, Jacob next to me, Madison beside him. Lucy was drawing in her sketchbook on my lap. I could hear the names being called one by one, the applause, the cheer. When Brian's name was called, he didn't walk alone. He paused, looked at the crowd, and called out, "Grandpa, will you walk me up?" The entire room turned. I stood up slowly. For a moment I felt that same old ache. Will they laugh? Will someone scoff? But no one did. They clapped louder. Madison wiped her eyes. Jacob clapped the hardest. I walked to him and took his hand. "You sure about this?" I whispered. He nodded. "This is our win." I don't remember the applause, only the pride in his eyes. For years, they had looked at me like I was nothing. Now, even strangers clapped for the old man walking beside his future. After the ceremony, as we drove back, Brian sat next to me. "Grandpa, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What would you have done if I said no that day?" "To the walk?" "Yeah." I'd have sat in my seat, smiled, clapped, and gone home proud of you anyway, because love doesn't wait for a spotlight, it just shows up. That evening, we all had dinner at a restaurant, Jacob's Treat. Everyone was chatting, laughing. I stayed quiet mostly, soaking it all in. The noise, the joy, the second chance I thought would never come. Then, as dessert came, Jacob raised his glass. To the man who taught us what real power looks like, not through yelling or threats, but through silence, action, and patience. To Dad. Everyone raised their glasses. I smiled but didn't say anything. My heart was too full. Back home, I changed into my night clothes, poured myself a glass of warm milk and sat on the porch. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Carol, they finally saw me." I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour, maybe 3, but everything felt complete. I had lost so much, been called useless, been laughed at, but I had never stopped loving, never stopped waiting. My phone buzzed. A new message in the group chat Jacob had made. Family photo day tomorrow, 10 a.m. No excuses. Grandpa leads the front row. I chuckled, front row, huh? The next morning we met at a small park. The photographer arranged us, and for the first time in years I didn't feel like I was being included out of pity. I stood tall in the center, children and grandchildren surrounding me like a crown. The photo was taken. Everyone cheered. That night I wrote my last letter to Carol. This one was shorter than the others. They see me now, not just as the old man in the corner, but as the man who carried them quietly until they learned to walk with their own strength. I didn't shout. I didn't punish. I let time speak. And now they hear me in every moment. I'm not useless. I was just waiting for the right ending. And here it is. To everyone watching my story from around the world, thank you for hearing me, for staying with me. I may be just a character in a story to you, but to me this has been a second life. If you're still here, hit like, subscribe, and drop your city in the comments. I want to see where my story reached. And remember, sometimes silence is the strongest answer, and love, the quiet kind, wins in the end.